So today it is the 1st of April, 2026, and this is the inaugural, very first episode of Rose Coloured Glasses. So welcome. As your host, Rachael Karlyl, I would love to share with you a little bit about what I want to get out of this podcast and therefore what I want you to get out of it. So, it all starts with a moment. The moment where you believe that this isn't it, that maybe there's more, that you're destined for something bigger, something more than what you're doing right now. It's that moment. That moment for me was when I was sitting in a waterfront office in Brisbane, looking over the waterfront office. Looking over the Brisbane River. And really, I should have thought that I'd made it at that point. I was getting paid pretty well. I was doing pretty interesting work. And I was working in a mid-tier law firm. And for all intents and purposes of being in law land, I'd made it, in inverted commas. But it just didn't feel right. I was also coming off the back of a period of terrible burnout in a place where I was not acknowledged, wasn't paid enough, wasn't supported, didn't have a development track, all of those things. And so perhaps the moment of clarity more so came when I was sitting in that chair looking out that window. That moment of clarity had been building potentially for years and years prior, but it didn't hit me until I realized that even in the situation where the barriers of what I thought the barriers of burnout and the types of work and all of these things were removed, I still wasn't feeling right. And so, like a good lawyer, I went out and started a master's. But I started a master's in business administration, so an MBA, as opposed to doing a master's of law. I knew that I was destined for something bigger and better. I knew that my impact had to be more than the impact that I was making in lawland, which felt kind of part of a cog in the corporate machine. And I knew that I didn't want to do what I was doing forever. I didn't know what the next step was going to look like. I didn't know what a new job would look like. I didn't know anything really other than what I had known at this point for about 10 years. It was all a bit scary, but as soon as I set foot in my very first class for my MBA, I realized that I'd made the right decision. And that decision was to find the value in me. It had been distilled. I knew that I was really good at motivating people. I knew that I was a pretty good lawyer. I knew that I loved supporting people, educating people, training people, teaching people how things are done. But I'd lost my spark. I'd lost my value. I didn't know who I was. And in this MBA journey, I started to develop an understanding of a thing called purpose and values. And at this point, this was back in 2018, 2019, and this was really before everyone was doing it, really. And I wanted to understand what that meant. I wanted to understand why, even though I was at a point in my career, in my life, where I thought I'd done all the things that I was supposed to do to get to the place that I thought I wanted to be, and I still wasn't still wasn't happy, still wasn't there, still wasn't feeling it. And so I started to identify this values and purpose thing. And I was lucky enough to be doing work experience at a management consulting firm that had a really big focus on purpose. And I got to identify what mine was, and that is creating a positive impact through meaningful interactions. And that is something that I have lived by, and that is, because the meaning of that has developed for me considerably since I did this in 2018, 2019, but it's considerably changed and adapted the way in which I interpret this now to the work that I do. And the work that I do now in being able to support other people to understand their career pivots and try and work through this all of the sum of my experiences is now in what I do. And this podcast now is a lesson in learning how other people have done the pivot and nothing bad has happened. And maybe even good things have happened. And so a little bit more of a background about me. So once I kind of got through my MBA, I worked at a organization as a general manager in sales and marketing, doing a lot of sales and marketing. Such a beautiful grounding for a business, because the reality is, if you have a business without sales, then there's no business at all. I also managed a small law firm, and that was probably my first big leadership role, where I had about 10 people or 9 people underneath me that I was managing. And 6 weeks into that role, we went into lockdown. It was COVID, so that was a whole thing. And 2 days before we started that role, I had a massive relationship breakdown with my ex-partner. There was a baby and a bridesmaid. I wasn't involved, so you can put the pieces together there. So that 2020 was this crazy year of change. And I actually ended up meeting my new husband later that year. Because what I told myself during that year, when I started to heal and I started to develop and I started to change and I actually started to live aligned to the purpose and values that I'd identified, I started to realize and understand my value and what I was offering the world and what my story was going to be. And my story was not going to be, I'm locked down in COVID and my life is falling apart. That was not going to be my story. So the story I wrote at the end of that year, or going into the new year, was that I was a law firm owner. So later in 2021, I started a law firm and ran that for a few years. And I think that even that story had limiting beliefs in it, in the sense that I thought that was the best option for me because I knew law and I knew immigration. And so why would I not utilize the skills and experience that I already had, plus my MBA, plus the amazing coaches and mentors that I had around me, to be able to start a law firm? So it turns out that was actually someone else's version of success, and it wasn't mine. And I am more than happy to tell people that. I have friends that started law firms around the same time as mine. I've actually done strategic day sessions with them now around, the way in which their firm operates and what they do and how they can grow and or adapt or change, or how things are going to be bigger and better. But it wasn't for me. I didn't love the work. What I love is doing this, is talking, is training, is helping people realize that you can design the world around you without having to fit into this default landscape, qualification, career, job journey that was predestined or determined for you before you even got to make that decision. So today, on the 1st of April, 2026, I start this podcast. And I'm calling on all of the people around me, and I have a list of 50 people already that I want to interview, to understand those pivots, to understand the additional things that people do in their lives to design the world around them, so that they are in their rose-colored glasses bubble, living the way in which they want to live, as opposed to the way that is predetermined and destined for them. I strongly believe this can be done. I really, really do. I live in a location now that I only dreamed of 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Even as a kid, I always thought, it'd be so beautiful to live there. I live here now. There's things that we dream, we manifest, we consider as things that we don't deserve, or we shouldn't get, or we shouldn't be, or we couldn't be. But what I want to encourage each and every person listening to this podcast, and to any other podcast really, is that I want you to consider that you are the change that you want to see in your world, not anybody else. No one else is coming to save you. And that's the reality. So if you want to be the change that you want to see in your world, you have to understand what your inner map, your values, your purpose, your understanding, your dreams, goals, future is going to look like. Consider it, think about it, map it out, draw a picture, and then design it. Design it and start living it. And that is the only way that is going to happen. I know that's pretty heavy, but that's what I wanted to say. And to finish episode 1, the inaugural episode 1, so excited. I just want to invite you to come along on a journey. Again, if you're thinking about being that person that maybe this is not right, maybe there's been a moment and maybe you've ignored that moment, maybe the moment keeps coming up constantly. This is the space to start considering, to start planning, to start designing, to start realistically listening to your inner map, to start guiding your outer path. I strongly believe we can strategically create the life we want if we understand what we want. The difficulty is most people don't know what they want. So this podcast is going to help you to start to create a new energy. I see you. I've been in your shoes. And I want you to not live the things that I lived. And I want you to learn from the mistakes and the lessons and the things that I've learned. So I'm going to pass on that knowledge. And then I'm going to ask guests and amazing other humans to pass on their knowledge too. And it's going to be great. So this is the Rose Colored Glasses podcast. I am Rachael Karlyl, your host, and I am incredibly excited to kick this off on the 1st of April, 2026. Amazing. Okay, so that was episode 1. Real, raw, and inviting you to come on this journey with me. So if you're into it, like, comment, subscribe, do all the things that you're supposed to do. And I promise you it's going to be an adventure that we're going to go on together. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I cannot wait to share this with the world.